welcome to Gen Z Finance. I'm an older Gen Z on the cusp of being a young millennial, documenting my financial journey here on YouTube and over on my Instagram at Zennial Finance. Today's video is in collaboration with a couple of other wonderful YouTubers and Instagrammers. I'm going to leave some information and some links to their videos in the description box down below, but we thought it'd be interesting to share what are some things that we wish we knew about money earlier. I'm kind of going to talk about what I've learned about money at 24 and why I wish I knew some of these things at an earlier age. So before we get too far into it, in case you are new to my channel, I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am. I am 24 years old, as I mentioned. I work full-time in HR. I live in Tampa, Florida, and I did pay off $29,000 in student loans in 19 months. So I have been sharing my financial journey and my financial information on this YouTube channel now for about 15 months now, and I started when I was still 22 years old. And something that I hear a lot about in my comments or on Instagram or whatever are things like, if only I had started when I was your age, wow, I wish I knew this when I was 23, or you are way more disciplined than I was at that age. And while I really appreciate these comments, something I always try to tell people, and actually the first thing that I have learned about money, is that everyone wishes they started earlier. Literally everyone. Yes, even when I was 22 years old, when I was first dipping my toes into personal finance and starting this channel and sharing my numbers, and I started to get those comments, I would still look at, people who were posting things on Reddit or in the community, and they were saying, they were 18, 16, 14 years old, and they just got their first job, and they want to know what they should do with their money or where they should invest in all of this. And I'm like, well, dang, if only I knew what I knew now at that age, I could be in such a better position. So the first thing that I learned about money is everyone wishes they started earlier, and there's really no point in being upset about when you started, because someone older than you wishes they started when you had. As long as you started, that's really the important thing. And this is true for anyone's age. And this kind of ties into the second thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned is that time is money's best friend. Now, although I said really no reason to be too upset about yourself for starting when you did, because at least you started, I still believe that's true. However, I was shocked to find out just how important time is when it comes to building wealth. So money is most powerful the younger you are. And I'm just going to give two examples for this because I think these two examples speak for themselves. Imagine that you had $100. If you invested that $100 and kept it invested for 30 years and you didn't invest or add anything else to that initial contribution, at the end of the 30 years, you would have $1,740-ish. Now, if you invested $100 and had the same 10% return, but you only did it for 20 years, you would now only have $670. So having that $100 invested for an extra 10 years almost triples what you have at the end of the time period. Now, the second reason this is true is just due to inflation. So $100 invested today has a greater value than the $100 that you invest next year or 5 years from now. And that's just because that $100 doesn't have the same purchasing power. So it's the same thing that if you had invested $100 into the market in 1900, holy cow, you were probably already filthy rich. Where nowadays we see 100 and it's not jaw-dropping money to be investing into the market. That devaluing of the money is just due to inflation, and that is pretty normal and natural, and it happens and it will continue to happen. So that's another example of how money is more powerful when you're younger. Speaking of the connection between time and money, we have the third thing that I learned, which is I had always heard that time equals money, maybe from Mr. Krabs down here, but I never realized that money can also give you back time. So if you believe that time equals money, which is something that I was told growing up, then money can also equal time, which I had never thought about before. So money can give you back time. So if you have enough money, you don't have to give away your time doing things you don't want to do. If you have enough money invested or saved, you don't need to go to a job to work because you can pay yourself. You can also save your time by paying someone else to do tasks that you dislike, like housekeeping or cooking or anything like that. And then the other way that I like to think of money equaling time is that you can think of purchases in time costs and loss. So for example, if your hourly wage is $10, that means that when you go to Moe's Monday, which is one of my favorite things, and you get a meal there, that $10 actually costs you 1 hour of work. Or if you have a mortgage that's $1,000 a month, that $1,000 a month mortgage means you have to work 100 100 hours each month to be able to afford that mortgage. And I had never heard of this, thinking of your purchases in time cost instead of monetary currency. But I think it's a really powerful tool and a way to kind of get you to really put things into perspective and determine if something is really worth the money, because it's also worth an equivalent amount of time based on how much you get paid. So the fourth thing about money that I have learned that I wish I knew earlier is that money really isn't as complicated as it seems. I honestly thought that anyone who was like a financial guru or anyone who understood budgeting or investing or anything, like I truly believed that they must be geniuses, because like growing up, I don't know, like I just didn't understand any of it, and I would hear these terms on CNN and I just didn't understand it. It seemed like even these people who were geniuses or who were super rich and had gotten super rich from their investing or their businesses or whatever, they could just as easily lose all of this money, right, when a market crashes. But in reality, money advice is pretty simple and pretty repetitive, which makes it easy to learn. Regardless of who exactly that you follow or who your main financial guru is, everything kind of comes down to like the same basic dozen or so principles. And so some of those are: spend less than you earn, save and invest anywhere from 15 to 50% of your income, depending on who you follow and what your financial goals are, keep track of your income and expenses, and then question your past consumerism and decide what you really care about. It's totally okay to continue to spend money on the things that you value, but really ask yourself, do you value this? Why do you value this? And is there a way to get a better bang for your buck? And you know what's crazy? Investing isn't that much harder than the basic financial foundation advice that we just talked about. 99% of Americans only need to know a handful of things. Like if you learn about index funds, it's pretty much 80% of everything you need to know. You need to know the difference between a 401k and an IRA, and then Roth versus traditional, which at first can be very confusing, but once you hear the terms used enough times, you know it like the back of your hand. You need to keep expense ratios low, and you just need to know that you don't invest money you need now or sometime in the near future, and don't sell in a downturn or crash. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about investing, which is like mind-blowing. Obviously there are more nuances, you can definitely go deeper than this, but if every single person knew these half a dozen or so ideas, they would be in such a better financial position. Just know these things and you can be as smart as Andy Dwyer one day. And so the fifth and last thing I wish I knew about money earlier is that what works best for you will change over time. And this is one of the things that I'm just now recently catching on to. So personal finance is personal, which means everyone approaches it a bit differently. So you gather tips and examples of how many people handle their money, and then you just mix and match to find what works for you at that time. But something I've learned recently is that you have to be ready to change your own approach multiple times throughout your journey. So for example, when I first began my personal finance journey, when I was just starting to understand all of these financial terms and starting to pay off my student loans, I had nothing automated. I liked having total control of my money. I manually transferred money everywhere. I manually paid off my credit card balance every month. I manually sent money to my student loans. And that actually goes against the grain of one of the most popular personal finance teachings, which is to automate as much of your expenses as you can and not have to worry about them. And I actively fought against that for a very long time. In fact, I said that piece of advice didn't work for me because I actually liked having that total control of my money where I had to make every single move. And that worked really, really well for me for about a year and a half. And then within the past, 6 months or so, I began to rely more on automatic payments and automatic investments. At the beginning, I really needed to have that control and know where every single dollar was at all times and make the decision for when and where my money was being held. And now I don't really feel the need for that. And actually, I'm happy that I can not think so hard about all of the little minutiae and details. So that's one example of how I've had to change my own approach to managing money. Another example is I've always been a big proponent of zero-based budgeting, and I still am. I budget my paychecks every time I get paid with YNAB or You Need a Budget, and they're really big on doing a zero-based budgeting. I still am a big proponent of that, but I am getting more comfortable with the idea of focusing on just paying myself first and making sure I'm hitting my overall saving and investing goal, and then letting myself spend however I want or need on anything else. So I still budget my paychecks down to zero, but I'm much more comfortable with, okay, if I said I was going to spend $50 in dining out this month and I actually spent $80, as long as I'm hitting my overall goal of investing a certain amount of money every month, that variance is okay. And again, that works really well with YNAB because they call that rolling with the punches. I just cover that $30 in extra dining out spending with money from another category and keep moving on with my life. So those are the 5 things I wish I knew about money earlier. They're very small and simple because honestly, I'm still learning about money now. I feel like I've been on this journey for 2 years, but it seems like every month my money management style or understanding grows or changes just a little bit. And this is a lifelong journey, so I'm always going to be continuing to learn things about personal finance, money management, investing, that kind of stuff. But I think if I had known those 5 things even a year earlier or 2 years earlier, I think I would have been more willing to start my journey and start learning more about money at that point. But those are just the 5 things that I wanted to talk about. Again, make sure you check out the links below to hear about what other women wish they knew about money earlier. These are all millennial women who have YouTube channels here, and I've actually collaborated with them in the past when I did my What I Spend in a Week vlog back in March. So we decided to collaborate again because we all come from different backgrounds and different perspectives on money. So make sure to check out the playlist below. As always, I hope y'all are staying safe and healthy and that you have a good day.